Good evening. It's a Wednesday edition, and I've been moving the show around a little bit as of late. And this week it's a Wednesday edition. I have another special guest on this week, Alex Strouf from KBN and Mr. Irrelevant, heard on ESPN Wisconsin, joining it. Thanks for coming on to talk some sports. We're mostly Packers, but sports in general.
Always happy to do it, my man. Always good to see you. And I know you teased it on your Twitter, but the last time we talked, I was looking it up before I jumped on with you. It was January 25th was the last time you and I got together, and that was the day and really the moment right when we went live that day when the Packers hired their new defensive coordinator and Jeff Hafley. So a lot has happened in the last, about 6.5 months.
Yeah.
A lot has happened.
Yeah, we still don't know a lot about him yet. We hear what has been said from him and about him at camp. We still don't know a lot about him yet, but based off the early results at training camp so far, I guess, what are your thoughts on the hiring so far?
Yeah, I mean, they're very similar to the instant reaction we had back on January 25th, right? He's a young, energized dude. He's going to bring a philosophy change. Obviously, a different base defense. So you're going to see a little bit more of, hand in the dirt for the Van Esses and the Garys and the Preston Smiths of the world. But, to your point, early indications of training camp are the defense is kind of kicking ass day after day, right? They've picked off Jordan Love and Sean Clifford and Michael Pratt, it seems, 30-plus times in the last 10, 11 practices. So early showing is good. I think our first real – I don't know if it's sample size, if you will, is Saturday against Cleveland, the first preseason game. But I don't know that we'll know a ton about this defense and a ton about Jeff Hafley, the person, probably until I would guess week 5, week 6, nearing midseason of the regular season. So it's going to take some time to realize what this defense is and what it's capable of and how good it can be. But as it stands on August 7th, as we chat, Evan, I mean, I feel really good about where they're at.
And I do too. It's still the biggest, I would say, question mark on the Packers, in my opinion. It's been a problem for the Packers basically since their last Super Bowl win. We were teased with a very good defense in 2014. Not going to talk about how that season ended. Give people PTSD, but for the most part, we've had average to bad defenses pretty much since 2010. So to me, until I see it on the field of play and it's not a problem, it's always going to be that question mark. And I'm guessing, as you said, we're not going to see much from Hafley Saturday. We don't even know if we know Love is starting, but we don't even know if the defensive starters are starting or not and what that's going to look like. And as I keep harping on about Jordan Love, I'm going to say the same about piggyback what you just said. It's the adjustments you make to the adjustments is what's going to tell you if you're going to have long-term success. And he might come out first 4 weeks of the season, defense is playing on fire, but then the next 4 weeks it can be, crap again or vice versa. So it's the adjustments you make once guys kind of see what you're trying to do and try to, the chess game. It's the chess game that you see every Sunday in the NFL.
No, you're totally right. And I think that's kind of what we saw with Jordan Love a year ago, right? I mean, he came out on fire, if you will, in week 1 against the Bears, and then it was downhill for 6 weeks with not just Jordan Love, but the offense overall. And then the second half of the season, we know what happened, right? He was better than every quarterback in the league. They win a playoff game on the road, and you see what that offense is capable of. So it's not going to be perfect. And I don't know the Packers fans necessarily expect it to be because, I mean, like you said, it's really been since 2010, 2011 that they had a really strong defense. So it's been a long time since Packers fans have been able to be used to a really successful defense. So it'll take time, but I'm excited. Everything that's coming out of Green Bay in 1265 sounds positive. And that's, I don't know. I think that's all you can ask for at this point.
Yeah, Xavier McKinney has really looked like the second coming of the Charles Woodson signing in practice so far. Be kind of interesting. I'm kind of excited to see what the defense looks like with him on. I think he's the one I'm most excited for with this new defense. Anybody in particular on that side of the ball you're excited to see under Hafley's system?
Yeah, I mean, I think when we talked about it back in January, and something I talked a lot about, from the day Joe Barry was fired until the day Jeff Hafley was named the coordinator, was The question I would ask a defensive coordinator candidate is, how are you going to elevate Quay Walker, right? And early indications here in practice and training camp show that Quay Walker will still be the quote-unquote defensive play caller. He'll have the green dot on his helmet. So how do you elevate him from, okay, it looks like he's capable of some good stuff. Okay, maybe he could be a superstar at some point too. Okay, he is a superstar. He's arrived, right? That's the big question for me. And just quickly, Evan, to your point on Xavier McKinney, what the Packers did this offseason is just so unlike them, right? I mean, to sign two former team captains, two guys that are all pro level at their position, in Xavier McKinney and then the running back Josh Jacobs. You know, I'm intrigued to see how Xavier McKinney affects that defensive backfield. I know Goody said yesterday on the Adam Schefter podcast that was a position when they were going into the free agency they kind of wanted to rebuild, right? The Darnell Savage, Adrian Amos, et cetera, experiences didn't work. So they went out and took a big swing. And, you know, McKinney's still young. I think he's 26, right? He's got a lot of career left. So I'm excited to see, you know, what he turns into and how he affects that defensive backfield. I'd be hesitant to call it Charles Woodson-esque like you just did, but damn, do I hope you're right.
I said so far during practice. Now we'll see how it transitions onto the actual field of play in a few weeks now when they're in Brazil. Mentioned Jordan Love. Quarterback position is one of those that it's easy to give all the credit to when things go well and all the blame to when things don't go well. And clearly things weren't going well after week one. Part of that on him, part of it on just, I think, the receivers learning how to be NFL players too. Year two of the Jordan Love offense, what is exciting you most?
The fact that we will see the full offense from week one. You know, Matt LaFleur was very open about it last year, right? I mean, you mentioned the young pass catchers and guys that weren't really ready to be thrown in the positions they were. But because they were thrown into the positions they weren't ready for, come the second half of the season, he was ready to open that thing up. And I think it was, in my opinion, I don't know what the exact answer is. He would know better than me, obviously. But I would guess probably that Pittsburgh game is when we saw, oh, man, this is a Matt LaFleur offense, right? You know, Love missed a couple throws, and there was probably still a couple routes run incorrectly. But then all of a sudden, you get to the Detroit Thanksgiving game. You get to the Kansas City Sunday night game. And you see what this offense is capable of when it is run to a T. And, you know, we had to wait until November last year to see that. We're going to see that September 6th against Philadelphia. We're going to see that week 2 against Indianapolis. So I think the opportunity to see the full-blown Matt LaFleur offensive genius offense from week 1 is the thing that excites me most. And you know, Evan, I've self-proclaimed myself the founder of the Jordan Love MVP Club, because after week 1 against the Bears last year, I said he's the MVP frontrunner. You know, nobody's ahead of him. And I think I was the first person to really say, hey, Jordan Love, you know, MVP. Realistically, though, in 2024, he's an MVP candidate. And I think he'll have the opportunity to prove that way earlier this year than he did a year ago, despite having a really good week 1 a year ago. Week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5, week 6 weren't very good for Jordan Love. I don't think that will be the case this year. I think he will be very good as the highest paid quarterback in the NFL now. So the thing that excites me most, is just getting to see the playbook opened all the way from week 1. The other part, too, is just how do these pass catchers shake out, right? Like, we can look at a depth chart, but I don't think that tells you the whole story. You've got the 4 receivers in Dobbs, Watson, Wicks, and Reed. You also have the 2 tight ends in Musgrave and Kraft. And, oh, yeah, you added a former All-Pro in Josh Jacobs, who said the thing he is most excited to prove in Green Bay is how effective of a pass catcher he is. So I just rattled off, what is that, 7 names that are going to be effective pass catchers from the get-go for the Packers. So I'm just excited to see how the weaponry around Love, you know, how it plays out. Because I don't think we could sit here all night and have the debate of who's the number 1 receiver. There's not a right answer. But you also add in the tight ends. You add in Jacobs. There are so many offenses. There are so many options on this offense. I think we're going to be spoiled to watch a really good offense in 2024.
Yeah, I think the O-line is probably going to be the biggest question mark, is because if the O-line doesn't hold it together, nothing else matters. Love doesn't get time to throw. The receivers don't get time to break on routes. Jacobs doesn't get running room. Right guard is where Morgan was going to be starting. Now he's hurt. Now Sean Ryan's has an opportunity to really own that position. But I think that's probably the biggest question mark on the offense is Walker had a great second half of the year. We know what Elton Jenkins is. We saw some of the all-pro-ness towards the end of last year, and we know what Zach Tom is. Right guard and center are probably the biggest two question marks on that offensive line. Myers very inconsistent, and Sean Ryan and Josh Morgan, we don't really know what they are yet.
No. However, I'll give you a dose of optimism here, because I think if I told you after the 49ers game, hey, that's your starting five, right? I know Runyon and Ryan were kind of splitting snaps at right guard that game. But other than that, right, if I told you left or right, your five starters week 1 of 2024 are Walker, Jenkins, Myers, Ryan, Tom, I think your response would be like, okay, that's great. That sounds pretty good to me. It didn't really cause a lot of issues last year. I mean, look, Jordan Morgan was not brought in to be a guard. Clearly, Rasheed Walker very early on, whether it was in the OTAs or early on a couple weeks ago at the start of camp, he solidified his role as the left tackle. So that allowed Jordan Morgan to go see, okay, where can I fit in? And the philosophy of the Packers for decades and decades has always been, give me your best five. And I'm confident that is going to be, I'm not worried about the offensive line. I'm really not. When we get to depth, when we get to injuries, maybe I'll be worried. But if you tell me the starting five is either the four I named and whoever plays right guard, Morgan or Jordan Morgan, the first round pick out of Arizona, or Sean Ryan, I'm happy with that. So, I think this offense is going to be really good, to be very transparent with you. I think they're going to be a top 7, top 5 offense in the league all year long.
And I agree. I just, picking a position that's going to be dependent on how well this offense cooks, and hopefully they have the correct best 5 in the correct spots. That tends to be, look at the Billy Turner at left tackle. I don't think, he might be one of the top best 5 you have, but I don't think left tackle is the best position to put him at, as an example.
No.
Jordan Love, highest paid quarterback. I know you had a chance to comment on this the day after the signing happened on ESPN Wisconsin. We're a couple weeks after the contract extension. We know more details on it. Position still the same on the Jordan Love signing, or has anything changed on it?
No, nothing's changed. I mean, it was the right move. The guy earned his money. The way the quarterback market is outrageous, it sounds to everyday guys like me and you having $55 million a year. That's a good chunk of change.
Yeah.
But in 3 years, that's going to look really good.
Right now.
Say that one again.
Quarterback right now.
Yeah, but that won't last, right? I mean, that he'll be 8th or 9th in 2 years. It's just the way the market goes. That money's only going to go up. It's the most important position, if not in just football and in all of sports. So yeah, I mean, it's the right move. When you've got your guy, you lock him up. Jordan Love proved he was the guy in the second half of the season. Obviously, you hope that. You hope that you see second half Love and you never see first half Love from last season ever again. And I'm pretty confident that will be the case. Obviously, he'll have bad games. Every quarterback has bad games, but I don't think you'll see consistently bad games in a row from Love like you did a year ago. I just don't think that's in his DNA anymore, which is good. So it's the right move. I'm happy with it. The Packers did it again. 3 great quarterbacks in a row. It's unbelievable.
And we know that if Love does have a bad game or make some bad throws, that our Packer fan base is going to be very comfortable, not going to overreact, going to understand that, hey, this happens. Obviously, I'm joking. They're going to be – I have a couple friends that are still like, well, I don't understand why you gave the Love the money. Well, because that's the going rate for quarterbacks. Yeah. You pay him now, or you either have to pay him even more money after another year, or you're talking franchise tag, and now you're completely destroying that relationship. So they had to pay him. It had to be done. And I, like you, feel that he definitely will be in the MVP conversation in 2024. A couple of things going his way. Very explosive offense, and he's a quarterback. If you're a quarterback, you're automatically qualified to be MVP, because it's kind of turned into a quarterback award recently.
Yeah, quarterback award. Yeah. Well, who was the last one to win it? It was Adrian. Did Adrian Peterson ever win it?
I think he did, but I think Derrick Henry was the last one to win it.
I
I
didn't
think
think
no,
I didn't
Henry
think he
did.
won an MVP.
No, he didn't. He was Heisman. He was the Heisman winner. Yeah, I think Peterson might be the last one. See, I'm getting my running backs confused.
No, you're okay. I think Peterson was the last one. That probably would have been 2012 or 2013, and then Sean Alexander won it. I want to say that was like 2007. And since then, I don't think there's been anybody but quarterbacks. But yeah, it's quarterback award. I just said it, right? It's the most important position on the field.
It's an article from 2018 talking about the non-18 quarterbacks that have won the award, and 2012 is AP, and then before that it was
Alexander. LT.
Try to see who else they have in here, but yeah, it's basically quarterback award. Yeah, Sean Alexander is 2005. So yeah, AP was 6 and then 12. Yeah, so I got Henry. So I feel Henry should have won it. Maybe that's why he's on my brain. I think he should have won it during his 2,000-yard season. But yeah, basically quarterback award. So outside of Love, any quarterbacks you think front runners for the award other than Lamar Jackson? Because he seems to be conversation every year.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, yeah, there's this guy named Patrick Mahomes. He's pretty good too. Yeah, I mean, if Burrow's healthy, I always think Burrow's got a shot. I think Josh Allen's due for one at some point if he stays healthy, and Buffalo is really good again. Dak was in the conversation last year. I wouldn't be shocked if that's the case again. I still think Dallas will be pretty good. Jalen Hurts is another name. And then I'll throw out a dark horse, which shouldn't be viewed as a dark horse given how much money he got paid this offseason. But with how explosive the Miami offense is, Tua Tagovailoa has to be in the conversation somewhere.
Yeah, and he definitely should be. He's shown that he definitely has the arm to put up big numbers. Now, if he does it against playoff teams or not, it's a whole other story. But you got to get yards against somebody, playoff team or not. But I think that's a really good list. And Mahomes and Lamar, obviously, front runners every year, although I think they're kind of bored with Mahomes because he probably should have got more love for last year with the wide receiving core he had. But I definitely agree with you. I think I wouldn't be surprised if Lamar wins it again because he seems to always put up huge numbers in the regular season. It's just come playoff time, he just can't seem to get it done. So,
fair.
Yeah. NFC North, Detroit won the division last year. Packers finished second. Then you had the Vikings and the Bears. What's your feeling on the division this year? You think the Packers overtake the Lions for the division, or is it still the Lions division? And I saw one of the guys on Fox Sports, I think it was Nick Wright, proclaimed the Bears are going to make the Super Bowl this year. Any surprise teams in the division that like the Bears or Vikings?
I don't know if you can consider the Bears a surprise, right? That's a 7-win team from a year ago.
I think if they go to the Super Bowl, it'd be a surprise team, though.
Well, yes. I don't think they're Super Bowl good, but if they were the 7th seed in the NFC, I don't know that I'd be shocked. I mean, that would but in that scenario, the NFC North would be getting 3 teams in, and I think the NFC is too good for 3 teams in any division because I think Philadelphia and Dallas are both in. I think the NFC West could get 2 teams. And then, I think the Packers and Lions are both in. When it comes to the division overall, I think it could be one of the most competitive, if not the most competitive in the entire NFL. I said it today on Mr. Irrelevant, Evan, and I'm curious on your thoughts on this because I was talking about, is the championship window open for Green Bay? And the way I viewed it was playoff teams that won a playoff game a year ago. Which of those teams definitively got better this offseason? I think there's 4. I think it's Detroit. I think it's the Houston Texans. I think it's the Baltimore Ravens. And I think it's the Green Bay Packers. I think those are the 4 teams that won a playoff game. I'm not saying it about Kansas City. I'm not saying it about San Francisco, especially if they trade away Ayuk. I think that's just a definite downgrade. I don't think the Chiefs by any means got worse, but I don't know that they got a whole lot better. I believe in Xavier Worthy as a receiving threat, but I don't know how good he is. I believe in Hollywood Brown, but how does he fit in Kansas City? I think those are the 4 teams that got better. I don't know who's going to win the division. I think it'll be separated by a game. I think it'll be between Detroit and Green Bay. I think they'll both be 11, 12-win teams. Chicago could win 9 games and get in, but I don't think they're in the division race quite yet. It depends how good Caleb or bad Caleb Williams is, frankly, because I think he's walking into maybe the best situation a rookie quarter, or number 1 overall pick has ever walked into. right? Looking at the weapons around him, DeAndre Swift, Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, Cole Kmet, Gerald Everett is there now. He's walking into an amazing situation. So if he's bad, they will not be a playoff team. If he's fine or good, they very well could be. So I don't know who's going to win the division. I can't give you that prediction on August 7th. If you ask me on December 7th, ironically my birthday, if you ask me on Saturday, December 7th, 4 months from today, I probably still won't know the answer because I think it'll be a 1-game separation. So it's going to be a really fun division. I'm confident in that.
And that's a good question about which teams got better who won playoff games last year. That's a very good question. I think the 4 you mentioned definitely did. I think the Packers probably improved out of them all just because a younger Jacobs, and not to discredit Aaron Jones, and he was a great Packer. Obviously, durability was a big concern with Aaron Jones. But I think with Jacobs being the lead back, he's 26. He still has a lot of tread left on those tires, even though he's been used a lot with that. And then Xavier McKinney, I think that's probably the 2 best signings. I'm not saying that to be a homer. I legitimately think those are the 2 best signings this offseason, pretty much by any team. I think it definitely improves both sides of the ball for Green Bay in 2 positions that they definitely could upgrade. And then there's always the rookie factor in Lloyd. You always have a rookie running back that comes out of nowhere. Maybe it's Lloyd. Detroit, I'm still not a big Campbell guy. I think Campbell is a great rah coach, but I think we saw against San Francisco just how limited he is when it comes to actually doing things a head coach has to do to get his team to victory with the X's and O's stuff. But Detroit's a team. Jared Goff's going to be the X factor. He's put together 2 good years. I didn't think he was going to put together a second good year in a row. But he's a guy that just got paid too. So division, definitely going to be competitive with those 2 teams. Bears can sneak in a little bit. The Vikings we're not going to talk about because Sam Donald and J.J. McCarthy are going to be their quarterbacks. And one's not a very good NFL quarterback and one isn't ready. So I think
correct. Now, the thing with Minnesota is, because I just said it about Chicago, whoever walks into that offense is walking into a really good situation. I don't know a lot about their offensive line. I don't think it's horrible. When you have the best receiver in football, a pretty good number 2 in Jordan Addison, a really good tight end in TJ Hawkinson, and we know how good that running back can be if he's used right in Aaron Jones. It's a really good situation too. So, yeah. But I'm with you. I don't think Darnold's good. I don't think McCarthy's ready.
Yeah. But yeah, as you said, I can't. I ask you the question, and I can't even answer the question myself. So I'm not being a very good show host here. I can't even answer. But I think it's the Packers division. Just because I trust Matt LaFleur more than I trust Campbell, to be perfectly honest. I think the OC in Detroit is a big reason why Detroit looks like such a good, well-oiled machine. I think if you get a good team matched up against Detroit, I think that's where Campbell shows his issues. And then San Francisco's due for a fall. They're due for a big fall, and maybe the Ayuk situation is just the start of it. But that's just a weird situation all itself.
Yeah, it is strange. I don't know if they're due for a big fall quite yet. I think it's coming. I'm with you, right? Trent Williams is old. McCaffrey's getting older. Debo's getting older. George Kittle's getting older. Their linebackers are really good, but they're getting older. I mean, they're still pretty young, but
they're on a new defensive coordinator again.
But that's worked out every time, it seems. I think they're still a year or 2 away from that, frankly. I still think they're probably the best team in the NFC. They're probably still the team to beat, and the Packers seemingly can never beat them in the postseason. Luckily, they get a late season test. Well, mid-season. It's mid-November. I think they play it the week before Thanksgiving. So, 6-7 weeks before the playoffs, you get to see San Francisco at Lambeau. I think that's the measuring stick game, right? So, and you get Detroit twice. So you play the 2 teams that played in the NFC Championship game a total of 3 times this year. You're going to know what this team is capable of. It's not going to sneak up on anybody like it did a year ago. So, yeah, you're right. I think San Francisco is still the favorite. I think Detroit and Green Bay are 2 and 3 and interchangeable.
When I say San Francisco is due for a fall, I didn't necessarily mean necessarily this season, but just the writings on the wall that I think it's coming. Money's going to come due. They're spending a ton of money on both and Christian McCarthy, those guys, McCaffrey. I just think they're due for a fall with the money, and you're gonna have to pay Brock Purdy eventually. Now, should he get the money that Jordan Love got? No, but you're gonna have to pay him eventually if you want to keep him. If you have a quarterback you like, it's easier to pay that quarterback than to try to find another one.
Or do they think they can do it again? Right? Do they think they can draft somebody in it's such a quarterback-friendly system, as is the Packers system? It's such a quarterback-friendly system, or do they look at it and say, "Whoa, we're not paying Brock Purdy $63 million a year. We just don't view him that important. We'll go draft a rookie maybe next year, develop him for 1 year behind Purdy, and hope he's ready." Like, I don't know. I don't know the answer. That might be their play, but it might not be. Purdy's so efficient, at least in terms of his record. I think he's lost like 5 NFL games in his 2 seasons, if that, when he started. So it'll be, yeah, you're right. I mean, it's something I'm intrigued by. I think Kyle Shanahan's a really good coach, but he can't win the big one. It's the one that keeps eluding him. And I don't know that this year is the year for that either.
Shanahan probably, if he thinks Purdy's the guy, might want to hang on to him, because you look at Shanahan's record as head coach in San Francisco with quarterbacks not named Garoppolo or not named Purdy. It's not very good. He's tried to show like, hey, my offense doesn't matter who you put in my offense, we can win. Not necessarily the case. I know Garoppolo is nothing special, and Purdy, we don't really know what he is yet with the weapons that he has, but I want to be careful what he wishes for in regards to he wants to move on to somebody else. Talked about the powerhouses in the NFC. Talked about the Eagles. So, interesting article on ESPN today. Interesting segment on Get Up this morning. Things seem to be coming to a problem in Philadelphia. It seems like the head coach and the quarterback not getting along really well. The line was, how do they get those two to get along? What are your thoughts on, is it just we're bored and we need things to talk about, or is there something legitimately going on there?
No, there's probably something legitimately going on there. It's just, is it being blown out of proportion? I don't know. I'm not in the building. But I will say this. We as Packers fans know what happens when quarterbacks and head coaches don't get along. You remember what happened to Mike McCarthy, Evan, right? I mean, he was
showing the door on after a regular season loss.
Exactly. And given the way things fell apart a year ago for the Eagles, let's remember that was a 10-1 football team who finished the season 10-6 and lost in the wild card round.
Got blown out in the card round.
Right. Or 11-5, however they finished. They lost 5 of their last 6, or all. I don't remember exactly off the top of my head, but it was really bad. It was a total fall from grace for a team that looked like they were the 1 seed in the NFC. It looked like they were going back to the Super Bowl, and then it was just a disaster from that point forward. So I don't know the relationship. I haven't read up on it a ton. I did see the story this morning on ESPN.com, but I still think they're a good team. I think their defense got better this offseason. I've always thought their offense was pretty good. I trust Jalen Hurts. I believe in him as a quarterback in the NFL. So yeah, we'll see. I think it's a fascinating story, and lucky for Packers fans, if there's trouble in paradise, we're the first team that gets to see trouble in paradise in Brazil, which I don't know if people call Brazil paradise, but we could see trouble in paradise in paradise.
So I guess, what are your thoughts on playing in Brazil? I didn't get a chance to ask you that.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I'm not going. It doesn't seem like the team's super thrilled about it. I guess I'm glad it's week 1 versus the middle of the season, right? Because you're not even really in a game day, quote unquote, routine yet in week 1. It's your first game going from 90 people on the roster to 53. It's the first, you're off a week and a half from your last preseason game. It's the first week of the season. You can kind of travel however they want. It sounds like they're going down Wednesday. They play Friday night. I don't mind it. I think it's cool. I think it'll be more Packers fans than Philly fans. So you're technically on a road game that'll sound like a home game. So that part of it I like. But otherwise, I don't know. I don't really have a strong opinion on it. If it was week 8, I might have a different opinion on it. But being a week 1 game, I think it's neat.
Pretty much my opinion on it is what you just said. I don't really have a strong opinion. I think it's cool for Packer fans down in Brazil because I've heard that and I've talked to Packer fans down there. There's a big group of fans down there. But it's cool for them. They get to watch Packers in person, maybe, because, the NFL is probably pricing it out of people's range. But now I'm going to move the AFC. Yeah. Now I'm going to move the AFC. I started to go that way, then I pivoted back with the Eagles. Kansas City, and then who else in the AFC?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think just going division by division, I look at Baltimore. I still think they're a threat after the AFC Championship run a year ago. Lamar coming off the MVP. I believe in Baltimore. That's a really good division too, right? If Joe Burrow's healthy, I believe in Cincinnati. If the AFC East is good, right? Looking at Miami and Buffalo, and if Aaron Rodgers is healthy, how good can the Jets be? So I guess after the Chiefs, as the dog barks in the background, I'm not sure if you can hear that.
Dog's not a Chiefs fan.
Yeah, apparently not. I'd go Chiefs, then Ravens, then Bills, then Bengals if Burrow's healthy would be my top four.
With the healthy Rodgers, what do you think of the Jets roster? So obviously the defense is very good, but outside of that, you still have Nathaniel Hackett calling plays.
Aaron Rodgers is calling plays. Breece Hall's a good running back. Garrett Wilson's a good receiver. What if Devontae Adams ends up there? I think that changes things. Rodgers is an amazing quarterback. I have no idea how he's going to be at 40 years old off an Achilles tear. I hope good. I love watching him play football. He's very good at it. He's very fun to watch. But I just think they're in I kind of view them in a very different way, but similar situation as the Bears. They could be an 8-9 win team and miss the playoffs because there's already two teams in their division making it. I view them as the third best team in the East. I think the Patriots are going to be the worst team in the league. And, the other three, I think Buffalo's in. I think Miami's offense is way too good to miss the playoffs. Could they be the third team, that gets in for one of those three wild card spots? Maybe, but I don't know. I wish I had more answers, but we saw Rodgers play 4 snaps last year. So we still have no idea, although he's been a Jet for a year and a half, what an Aaron Rodgers Jets offense looks like. So could they be 10 wins good? Sure. I mean, it's Aaron Rodgers. I'm not going to put anything past him. But could they be 7-10 and miss the playoffs? Yeah, they certainly could be. I have no idea, to be real honest with you. They have the names, but will they produce?
I don't have any faith in Nathaniel Hackett-led offense. I really don't have any faith. In Green Bay, he was the offensive coordinator by title only.
Yep.
It was LaFleur's offense. He ran the offense. Not to discredit the in-game adjustments and game prep and things like that he did, but it wasn't his offense. You saw in Jacksonville, very lackluster offense down there when he was OC there.
Yep.
You saw the head coaching debacle in Denver.
Sure.
And you saw how year one, even without Rodgers, you saw how year one as OC, because he was OC last year, right? Am I getting that my dates?
No, he was. Yeah, you're right.
Oh, that's right. He was at Denver, then he went to the Jets with Rodgers. That's right. You saw how year one as a play caller in New York went. I'm not sold on him as a play caller, and I know it's going to be basically Rodgers' offense moving forward. As that's why he wanted Nathaniel Hackett to be the OC in New York. But I'm just not sold on him as a play caller and play designer and things like that. It's going to be let Aaron Rodgers do whatever he wants. And we saw how that went in Green Bay with the end of Mike McCarthy.
True. Good point. However, I will still make the point that an offense is going to be really, really good if it's led by Aaron Rodgers. Really, really might be strong coming off an Achilles, but it'll probably still be really good. He's one of the most both intelligent and talented quarterbacks we've ever seen play in the NFL. I mean, that's just frankly what it is with Rodgers. So I think he can make Nathaniel Hackett look like a genius, and he might this year. Right, and I'm with you. Like, I don't believe that Hackett is a play caller either, but when Aaron Rodgers is your quarterback, it's hard to look horrible. How many years when Rodgers was healthy in Green Bay did they look like a bad offense? 0, I think, is the answer. The years he wasn't healthy were when things went south. So
the year they lost Jordy, he didn't quite look like the Aaron Rodgers of the past. Devontae was still figuring it out while injured. People forget about that. But outside of that, I think it's only but when he's been hurt, things that look quite right. So
yeah, you're right.
Gonna switch sports on you.
Sure.
Brewers.
Yeah.
The Braves 2-1. Got 10 runs yesterday. I put the over under at 4.5 today after scoring 10 yesterday. Are you think under or over at 4.5?
Well, I'm going to cheat and look how many they have. They have one in the third right now.
Four too.
They're down 2-1 right now.
Yeah.
Probably the under. I mean, we know how the bats have worked recently. They've lost, I think, heading into this Atlanta series, they had lost 6 of their last 8 series, and that didn't count, the beginning of July, their first series where they split 4 against the Rockies. I don't want to say they're slumping because I don't think they are, but they're certainly not playing like they were in May and June. They're still a really fun team. They're still kind of got that Packers-esque youth movement going with Ortiz and Frelick and Churio and Terang. But the arms are going to catch up to him at some point. I hope it's in October more so than early August. But I will take the under on your 4.5. Sorry to answer the question you didn't ask me and to answer the question you asked me. I will take the under tonight.
Yeah, they've been frustrating lately, and guys who they were depending on early on, like Ortiz and Terang, have not been playing well, and they're definitely missing Yelich. But watching Jackson Churio play is just incredible.
He's a superstar. How
quickly he's become a superstar at 20. Like the first month of the year, it's like, are we going to have to send him? I was never on the send him down the AAA bandwagon. This is me producing Brewers extra innings multiple days a week and seeing the text messages and the phone calls Don would get. Thankfully, the trade Willie Adames calls are done because the trade deadline's passed. But I wonder if Dom got a call yesterday after Adames went 2 home runs at another extra base hit.
Yeah, they should or
not. Every time Adames had an outstanding game this year, guess what? The first phone call out of the gate. Should the Brewers trade him? But anyway, they're frustrating. And I would say this about the arms. They went to the NLCS and was a game away from knocking out the Dodgers with Wade Miley and Tasheen being the 1 and 2 options of their starting rotation. So I think Peralta, Tobias, are
Colin Ray.
Thank you. I think his name was escaping me. I think they're better options at this point than those two were at that point as leading a rotation, but I'm not going to say they're getting to that.
I'm with you, but you got to get the bats back up, right? You mentioned Joey Ortiz. You mentioned Bryce Terang. Defensively, both those guys are great. Offensively, they are so up and down. You miss Yelich
on the day.
I'm sorry?
He is Ortiz is 1 for 2 on the day so far.
That's 500. We'll take that every day of the week. But yeah, you miss Yelich, and the hope is when you get to playoff time, you get him back. I'm very grateful for the Cardinals and the way they continue to lose when we lose. But
they just got to stop winning when we win, though.
Correct. Get us the cushion back. But yeah, look, I mean, it's just such a long season, man. Like we could be talking 3 weeks from today, and I might have a completely different vibe on the Brewers than I do today because it's just such a grind of a season. 162 games is a lot, and a lot can change in 15 of them. So look, I think still as it stands, this is going to be the team that wins the NL Central. It's going to be the team that's one of the last 4 in the NL. It's going to be a team that could be in the NLCS. I don't probably think that's going to happen. I think the Phillies and Dodgers are probably the top 2 and really the only 2. But could they have a fun series with the Phillies? Of course, right? Could they go 6 games with the Phillies? Sure, absolutely. So, we'll see. And maybe we're manifesting Ortiz and Terang having the best offensive stretches of their careers still yet to come. It's just so unpredictable and there's such a variable to success. But it's a first place team. It's the 3rd best record in the NL. And frankly, as of 2 days ago when we talked about it on Mr. Relevant, every good team in the NL, every team with a winning record was less than 500 in their last 10. And that's just sometimes how it goes. You're in the dog days of summer. The yips happen, bad stretches happen. It's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the season. You just hope that to your point on the rotation, right? That Ray continues to pitch the way he has. Tobias pitches a little bit more like he was in May and June, and Freddie's Freddie. You're giving yourself a fighting chance with that at the very least.
Yeah, you're hoping you get the Freddie Peralta at some point. Since April, he's not been good. You're hoping at some point you get the Freddie Peralta you had in the second half of last year. That could carry you in the playoffs if you get that Freddie to go with the trades that they did make. I know and early returns on Savelli's not been good, and we've only seen one start from Montas.
Yeah, Frankie Montas. Yep.
You've only seen one start from him so far on a Brewer.
Hey, but that was a W. That was a win. You'll take the win.
But I'm not down on Montas. I'm saying is we just haven't seen enough from him to form what he's going to do in Milwaukee. Savelli, the returns have not been good. But if you can get Freddie, which he looked really good against Atlanta last week, he's given up 2 first inning runs tonight, but now he's got 2 outs, which is usually his Achilles heel. When he gets 2 outs, he can't seem to get the final out. But Freddie can pitch like second half Freddie from last year. That's the rotation that can carry you pretty far. And next week's series against, I think it's next week's or the following week's series against the Dodgers is going to be a huge one because you're 2 games behind the Dodgers right now for that number 2 spot. That could you can either leave there tied or in first place or second place in the NL or much further back. But be very curious to see that series. And the Brewers need to beat good teams. They struggled against the Dodgers earlier this year. They struggled against the Phillies. They need to beat good teams. And that's a good point to show them that, hey, we can beat the Dodgers too. And we hope we can see that in a couple weeks.
You're preaching to the choir, man. You're preaching to the choir, right? I mean, I just talked about the Packers and that mid-November game against San Francisco. I called it a measuring stick game. Next week against the Dodgers is a measuring stick series, right? It tells you how good this team is as we go down the stretch here. And, we're inching closer and closer to September, especially at that point that series happened. So, yeah, I mean, they just haven't really beaten good teams. Luckily, their division is filled with a lot of not very good teams.
And trying to debate if I want to ask you about the Bucks or not, because I know you've been talking all day with Mr. Relevant and dealing with KBN Nation and all that. Thoughts on the Bucks offseason move? That's what I'll leave it at.
I don't know, man. I mean, it's what am I supposed to get really excited over Gary Trent Jr.? Like, I don't know what I was expecting them to do. Maybe they still have the rabbit out of the hat like they did last year with the right before the season started Dame Lillard trade, right? If they have a big move, maybe it's still 2 months away. Look, I mean, it's as simple as this with the Bucks. If they're healthy, they're as good as anybody. But Philadelphia got better this offseason. Boston just won the championship. The Knicks got better this offseason. The East is no longer the Bucks and everybody else like it was a couple of years ago. It's just no longer that. It is now, okay, the East has 4 really good teams. But if you have a healthy, and that's a big, big, big if the last few years, if you have a healthy Dame, Chris Middleton, and Giannis Antetokounmpo entering the postseason, you're in really good shape. I will take the Bucks in every series they play. But the last 3 years, that has not been the case. The last years it's been Giannis mixed in with some Dame this year. The year prior, it was Chris.
The championship year, Giannis even got hurt too.
Yeah, that's true.
You kind of lucky, or I hate to use the term lucky because things just lined up for you that year too. But you kind of benefited from playing the Hawks in the Eastern Conference Finals than playing anybody else in that situation. And Chris Middleton went God mode that series. Let's be real.
He went God mode, and he kind of went God mode in this series against the Pacers, but it just wasn't enough. If you have all 3 of those guys healthy, I mean, I give them a better chance than anybody else in the East. But it's just been such a big if. So that's the thing that. And look, I'm not saying move on from Chris, but I'm saying get a younger big man, get some younger depth pieces, and maybe Gary Trent is that, but I mean, you saw what the Pacers beat the Bucks for one reason. It was depth. I mean,
Yeah.
that was the biggest reason.
They were helped at the end of the. I know they had some injuries the next round of the playoffs, but that round of the playoffs, they were the healthy team at the end. Middleton's playing on 2 bad ankles, even with his effectiveness. And Brook Lopez against the Pacers is not a good matchup anymore for Brook. And he's having more and more matchups in the NBA where he's just not a good fit on the floor. So having a big man off the bench would be very beneficial to have that can take some of those some of those minutes against more athletic teams.
Totally.
So, well, I appreciate it. If you want to, Alex Strouf, let the viewers and the listeners know where they can find your stuff. Chance to kind of promote what you do, the great work that you do. So,
thanks, man. Thanks for having me as always. So you can find my show, Mr. Relevant, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, beginning at 12:30 p.m. Central on the ESPN Milwaukee, ESPN Madison YouTube channels, also available wherever you get your podcast. Shout out to my great friends at Door County Distillery for their support of the project. And you can follow me on social, on Twitter at Alex_Strouf, on TikTok and Instagram at StroufESPN. Always posting clips and different shenanigans going on there. And, if you want to hang out with me this week, I'm running the marathon Friday on ESPN Milwaukee, 12:30, Mr. Relevant, 2 to 5. I'm in with Kyle Wallace for KBN, and then I'm filling in for Homer from 5 to 6 with Gary Ellerson. So I'm running the marathon on Friday, Evan.
So you mentioned Door County Distillery. I have quite a few of their items in my pantry right now. My mom actually for them. She works out, but she's more on the winery side, but she's one of the managers for the winery. So
no kidding. That's fantastic. Yeah, they're great. And, long time partner of mine. I bought the Bucks championship bottle from Door County Winery, but I'm a whiskey guy. So a match made in heaven, and they've got some really good whiskeys that I certainly indulge in more in the winter time. Summer's more beer time. Winter's more whiskey for me. But anyway, I digress.
Yeah, and I'm very familiar with their products, and they have great products. The whiskey, as you mentioned, very good. The brandy, definitely very good, and their cherry vodka.
Oh yeah,
I recommend that.
Yes, sir.
My sponsors, but I guess it helps my mom out though by talking about them. So, well, thank you for coming on. Look forward to listening in on the marathon on Friday, and I know we'll talk down the road. Appreciate you coming on. For those watching, listening, the podcast version will be available tomorrow morning, and you can find anywhere podcasts are found. Until next week, I will talk to you then. Have a great rest of your week.